Okay, we are recording. Hey, it's Jeff, and I'm here with Victor Chang, who is a very special person in my life.
You're very sweet.
Because long ago, in early 2005, I made the absolute first offer ever for product launch formula. Actually, it was called the Product Launch Workshop, and it was sort of a dismal offer. I didn't do very well. I had a great big room of people. There's like 200 people there, and only 6 people bought. Which isn't, if you know the math on metrics, 6 out of 200 is not good in a live event, but Victor was one of the very first 6. I've now had, I think, like 12,000 people go through product launch.
Wow.
And you were,
I didn't realize that.
One of the first 6.
One of the first 6.
Victor
awesome.
Chang, absolutely amazing. You mentioned that you do launches.
I still do it. Yeah, I have a dedicated staff person who does the mini one, the mini product launch, and we do it, every few months, and it still works. And it still works. And so, I mean, that was a big investment for me at the time because I was about 13 years ago. Yep. And I've made my money back. Let's just put it that way. Nice. More than a little bit. Than a little bit. Yeah, nice. It's been good.
So we just got to reconnect, and Victor was sharing some amazing stuff. Could you just maybe give like a 30-second who you are?
And so Victor Chang, I graduated from Stanford. I'm very popular and well known in the management consulting field, strategy consulting firms like McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. And I'm also in the sort of entrepreneurial world that Jeff's sort of a part of, and we sort of cross paths that way. And I was giving a talk earlier today about building non-financial assets in your business. And when you think about assets, you think about money, stocks, bonds. I think about, and probably do you, mailing lists, relationships with partners, people who will endorse you, a good content expertise, developing a personal brand. Those are all things that don't show up in an annual report for a company.
Copy, offers,
absolutely.
Sequences.
Knowing a market really well, having a credible story or backstory. Those are all things that are really useful assets in a business, even though like a bank would never see them in a financial statement. So the big message for today that I was sharing was how important it is to pay attention to those. And one of the things you taught me 13 years ago was your list is like your big asset. And it's so funny, I have a staff person whose job every week, most important thing she does is to back up the mailing list, put it on the backup server, which then copies to the other backup server, which automatically copies to the offsite backup server, and then is emailed to me. Right? Because I remember what you said, don't stink and lose the list. So it's obviously a very important asset, and as is the relationship with people on the list. So I paid a lot of attention to that. So very, very important to build assets and non-financial assets in your business.
And one of the things you talked about was the switch, like how early on you're chasing, you have to worry about income, right?
You do. There's a balance between building, working for income versus working for building assets that then create income. Right? So the rule of thumb is you focus on income until you can pay your bare minimum of bills, right? So scale back, pay your bare minimum of bills, whether it's a job or doing consulting work one-on-one, which isn't as efficient as, say, a product. But you know it works, people want it, they want you, and get that. Get your base level minimum paid for. The second you can do that, and you want to lower your expenses as low as possible, so that threshold is quite low, the second you can do that, what you want to do then is start building assets. Right, so that is putting content out there, building a YouTube channel with subscribers, building a mailing list, putting articles out there, writing articles on other people's websites, magazines, and blogs that link back to your website. All those things have long-term value, and those long-term value assets have, and you know how to sort of monetize them over time, right? And that's a byproduct of doing a good job. So that's the balance. Sometimes you got to go for the income, but the second you got just enough, switch to assets, accumulate those assets, and they can really take care of you and your family for a very, very long time.
Because you talked about like one of the, I mean, the way you go after wealth and the way like people say on Wall Street or the true wealthy do this is they don't build income, they build assets.
Absolutely.
That create income.
Absolutely. It's a subtle difference, but you can get 1 year of income now, which is what most will worry about, right? The next paycheck, don't get fired, get the next client. What people who have a lot of wealth do, they don't want just that. They would sacrifice that to get 100 years worth of income. Right? And the only way you do that is through an asset. So sometimes it's financial assets, stocks, bonds, real estate portfolios. Sometimes it's business assets. It's a system, it's a method of doing things, it's a licensable technology, it is a product, it is a service with a way of recruiting people who can perform that service, it's a brand. Those things are real concrete, and well, technically they're not concrete, but they're quite useful, valuable assets. And so it's really important to sort of pay attention to those and focus on them, because that's what brings sort of long-term wealth.
Do you have say maybe an example or a horror story of someone that did this wrong, or an example of maybe people chasing income at the expense?
Yeah, sometimes what happens is if you, for example, if you have built up a huge reputation that is very, very valuable, a very easy way to destroy that reputation is to, say, promote something to the people who know you and trust you that's very terrible, right? So you send them down the wrong way, you know it's a bad deal, they will figure it out eventually, and they don't trust you anymore. That relationship took 5, 10, 15, 20 years to develop, that trust, and you just flushed it down the toilet, basically in one day.
Right.
So it's very easy to do that, and some businesses, and particularly large companies, are very tempted to do that, and it's a mistake. And it's a mistake, but it's a tempting mistake for some people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Victor, thank you so much. So PLF owner, I don't know which of the 6 you were, but you could possibly be the first ever.
Go check your order forms. I want to know. Now I need to know which. I'm competitive. I want to be #1. I think didn't we have to run up to the front of the building?
Probably.
I don't know how fast I was back then, 13 years ago.
Probably faster than you are now, I bet.
But I was wiser then. Like, you know, so I knew the offer was coming. I got a head start, you know, before.
You might have been #1.
I might have been. Yeah. I might have been. Let me know if you happen to have those forms.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
VictorCheng.com is where you can find me from a business standpoint. I also do a lot of blogging in the management consulting field at caseinterview.com, which is where I sort of do most of my content in that field. And almost 1,000 articles or YouTube videos around the consulting field. So those are the 2 places to find me.
Fantastic.
Right. Thanks,
you,
Jeff. Awesome.
And wherever you're watching this, scroll down, leave a comment for Victor, let him know what you think, and let's go get him this week.